Quiet on set. Picture is up. All right, roll sound.
Rolling.
Roll cameras.
Cams rolling.
And 3, 2.
Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome back to Hank's Think Tank. We have Crystal Moore in today, and she's running for election to the East Montgomery County Improvement District Board, Position 5. She has two opponents, David Miller and Paul Batchelder, both of which have been on the show already. And there is no incumbent in this race. This position was vacated by Richard Tram. We're also going to have a forum on April the 19th at the EMCID Senior Center in Bull Salis Park. And the doors will swing open at 6 o'clock. We're going to party until about 7. And at 7 o'clock, we're going to poke and prod all these guys and ask them questions and get their introductions and find out what they're all about. And Miss Moore, it's great to have you on the show. Welcome aboard.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No
Glad to be
problem.
here.
No problem. So let's jump right in.
All right.
So what enticed you to run for EMCID? There's a lot of stuff you can do in this county, and I know you've already been involved in the Republican Women's Organization. So why EMCID of all things?
Funny you ask. So I was the vice president of the East Montgomery County Republican Women for 3 years. Then I was the president of the East Montgomery County Republican Women for 3 years. Now I'm currently the vice president. So I have been able to infiltrate myself in a variety of different community organizations, which has also crossed the line, not just Republicans, but with Democrats as well. And seeing the need, being a lifelong resident, small business owner in the community, I have recognized some things that I see the community needs, could benefit from, and some of the things that the Improvement District offers, some of the things that they could offer. And just talking with the community, other business owners, elected officials, brainstorming, always coming up with new ideas. I kind of threw it around that I may want to run. But I knew that if I did so, I didn't need to stretch myself too thin.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thinking about this over the last year or so. And that's when I decided, I think it's time. I've accomplished all the goals I had to accomplish as president of the Republican Women Organization. So I felt like it was a time for a new leadership to take on that and me explore other avenues where I could be most beneficial. So the Improvement District kept come up in conversation with elected officials, with community. And, I was encouraged to run, but I still needed to do it for the right reasons.
Sure.
Not for personal gain, not because someone's pushing me to do it. I really, really had to think about it. I prayed on it a lot over several months. And, finally I just went to my husband and I said, I really think that we need some better advocacy on that board that's going to represent small businesses. The community education is extremely important. I think it's the most vital role that the Improvement District does have on the community. So I had a lot of ideas that I'd been thinking about over several months. And, he said, well, you're jumping out of one hot seat into another. And I said, but what? I don't know it any other way. So after some serious self-thinking on this topic, I decided, I really feel like I would be a better benefit to the community, not just the Republicans, but the entire community, all cultures, all financial statuses, if I ran for the board. So then it was, which position am I going to run for? And obviously, if you've grown up in this area or lived out here any length of time and have been involved, you know someone on that board.
Sure.
So I knew several people on the board, and some of them would have been hard to run against because of personal,
Sure.
Personal relations, crossing fences here with this organization or that organization. And rather than cause a riff, I thought, there's going to be an open seat, and you're running for that open seat, not necessarily to out anyone. And I thought that, I think I'm going to go for it. I think I would be a great asset to the board.
Cool. Well, that sounds well thought out.
Yeah, a little bit.
So it looks like you looked at it from every conceivable angle.
Yeah, I did.
That's a good deal.
It was definitely a personal choice, but it was nice to see community leaders step up and give me that encouragement. So it just kind of validated, my position on running for the board.
Well, that's good. I hope the campaign's been going well so far.
It has. I've actually had a lot of interest and folks reaching out to me and offering support. So it's really been kind of overwhelming.
That's good. All right. So, and you had mentioned some of your qualifications just in that statement there, but I wanted to ask straight out, what uniquely qualifies you to be a board member for EMCID?
I've already proven to be a strong, successful leader. But I think with any leadership role, you have to be willing to compromise and accept the fact that your way may not be the way that's chosen, but you have to adapt and conquer. And if you want your voice to be heard, you have to be willing to listen. But I think a strong leader, I've proven that when I go back and talk to members of organizations that I have been a leader of, they commend me on that, and I don't use it as a power over them. Mm-hmm. I really want everyone to be built up, and I want to build up everyone around me. And a good leader leads by example. So I think that that's number one. 17 years in the oil and gas, taking the highs and lows, roller coaster, fast pace. That has, taught me a great deal of how to deal with different personalities.
Oh, yeah.
Highly stressful situations. Time negotiation is extremely important in that role. Project management is extremely important. So, in that type of environment, you have to look out and try to predict and foresee the future and how that's going to impact yourself, others around you, the community. So I think that, when I looked at it from the outside looking in, kind of was already doing some of the things that the Improvement District does, just on a different aspect.
Okay.
So those
cool.
are those qualifications.
Okay. So what ideas do you have regarding established small businesses in our community where economic development is concerned? Do you have any program ideas for small businesses? And I know that, going in, you're going to have a big learning curve in EMCID, and it's not going to be something you can just walk in and go, okay, here's what we need to do. That's not going to happen. Yeah. But you might have some thoughts in the background since this is something you've been contemplating for a year. So do you have any program ideas that you can think of that you'd be willing to release to us at this point?
I do. I think, I stand strongly on this platform. Growing up in this community, I've seen it just grow leaps and bounds.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It really is. I was just thinking the other day about how we used to drive across Community Drive, and there was just woods where Valley Ranch is.
And dangerous.
Yeah,
if you're
and
crossing.
dangerous.
Yeah, those were the days.
Yeah, those crossovers between New Caney and Splendora, they're all gone.
Right.
But if you remember back then, it was, there was no big chain stores. There was Wieners and Walmart were the only big chain stores. It was mom and pops. And this community has thrived and grown leaps and bounds, and there are thousands of small businesses in this community. And I think, going through COVID, and as a small business owner, seeing how devastating that impact had on a lot of small businesses. I know the Improvement District reached out and offered assistance to the ones that had taken up some small business loans with them and offered to work with them. But the thing is there's so many businesses that don't understand what the Improvement District has to offer for them.
Right.
And it's on their website. So the information isn't hidden. There's no hidden agenda. But I don't think there's enough public education to let these guys know that there is this entity here that can be very beneficial to them. So as a small business owner, whenever I saw the industrial park, and it continues to grow, and there's nearly 2,000 employees out there.
Right.
That's great. That's bringing jobs into the community. And I think the Improvement District has done a good job with that. But what I would like to see now is some of that focus turned to support our small businesses. Not only educate them on what programs the Improvement District has available for them, but educate these companies that they're bringing into our community. They don't know anything about New Caney, Texas, right?
Right.
So they're coming into our community, and when they need a vendor, they're pulling Houston vendors. And
or even vendors from elsewhere.
Or even vendors from elsewhere.
Right.
So I think the Improvement District could very easily mitigate that gap. And, even if it's a once a year thing where you host a conference or a kind of like a job fair or a vendor fair, and encourage these companies when they come into our community, use the vendors that are right here in your own community.
Right, like a small business
Absolutely.
expo. Yeah,
because
like
if you do that, you're going to feed the community in more ways than just creating jobs.
Right.
Because when you have community benefits, when you have community fundraisers, and there's, I was just working one this weekend for a lady who has cancer with the Taylor organization. They're a great organization. But they thrive off of the community's support, and they thrive off of small businesses that are supporting their organization. Many organizations are the same out here. We don't have the support from the large chains and the big corporations. What's feeding and supporting our local scholarship funds, the local fair association, and these benefits and fundraisers are your small businesses.
I agree.
And in order to have successful communities, you have to have successful small businesses, and one feeds the other. So the Improvement District, they've done what they said they were going to do. They've brought jobs, and they've invested into education, just like they said they were going to do. There are some things that I think, maybe could have done a little bit better job or a little bit quicker, but, it's a learning curve for everyone, right? So I don't fault anyone for that.
Right.
But I think the Improvement District, if they could just turn a little bit more focus to just be more supportive to the small businesses, this community will thrive leaps and bounds.
And see, that comes back also to EMCID, because if they did like a small expo, a business expo or something like that, just think of the benefit that would give EMCID themselves, just in exposure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then all these small businesses that don't know would have an opportunity at an expo or something like that. It's a great idea.
I was just driving
So when are we
down-
going to set it up?
Let me get on the board first. You can drive down any road that has a commercial business on it, and I promise you'll run across a business you didn't realize was there, didn't even know that they existed.
Right.
And I see that as a small business owner, and so I pick up on those things, and I'm like, not just the big chains could benefit from this, but if you had an expo where you invited all the small businesses and they could network amongst each other, just imagine how strong this community could be.
Right.
Feeding each other, business, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and EMCID knows how to set that kind of thing up. They're
Absolutely.
good at that. That's one thing they're great at.
They work with the chamber, but another thing, that I have heard from people in the community, and this is no fault to the chamber, but some of these small businesses, they just can't afford a large annual membership to something like the chamber. So a way that they could network without it costing them a huge membership fee, that's a win-win.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah, great ideas. Okay. All right, so let's turn the corner and talk a little bit about term limits. So how do you feel about term limits for a board like this? And not necessarily the EMCID board itself, but just term limits in general for boards like this, where there are elected officials and local, things like that.
It's a double-edged sword, because if you have term limits, depending on what those term limits are, you always have someone having to learn the process, right?
All over again.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough. But I think as an individual on a board, you kind of know, you should know when it's time to step back.
Mm-hmm.
You've kind of plateaued, you're burnt out. That's when you don't become a benefit to anyone, right? So I think the best way to answer that question is, I think the voters should be that one that sets that term limit, and educating voters. And when a voter sees that, they have an elected official in any capacity that is just there for the seat. This is not a paid position, but if it was a paid position, they're just there for a paycheck. They're not really being productive to the community. Vote them out. Get someone in there that is going to do it. And I think if you have the voters remain in control of that, and you have board members who are doing the right thing for the right reasons, you shouldn't have to set term limits.
Okay.
Let the voters mitigate that themselves.
I like it. Term limits by general consensus.
Absolutely.
Hey, that's pretty cool. I think it's the first time we've gotten to that on this podcast. So that's pretty cool. All right. So presently, EMCID has a $5,000 cap on grants. Do you think they should increase the cap, do away with the cap, or do you think grant requests should just be considered on an individual basis?
I think it should be determined based off the sales tax revenue from the previous year. You always need to look at that and do a data analysis. Where are we looking at on sales tax revenue versus last year? Are we seeing a decline or are we seeing an increase? And then base that amount of money you're going to be able to give to the grant program, and then look at how many grants you gave last year versus what you may think you'll give this year. So it's going to take some real data analysis to do this. But if you see that the year after year you're seeing a 50% increase or a 30% increase, and you see that what you have allocated for grants, it may not be being used to its full capacity, then maybe you need to just look at that. Well, did we keep it at a 5,000 cap anticipating more people were going to apply for these grants, and then we kind of could have given more to this organization or this one? So I think it should be a case-by-case basis, but I do think that you need to take all of those things into consideration.
Right. So data analysis based on historical evidence.
Yes.
And the funny part about that, I think if you looked at that historical evidence, there'd be some peaks and valleys.
Yes.
But if you got rid of those, you're going to find a general.
Yes.
So maybe that's a good idea.
Yeah, and I say that with the experience that I have from the oil and gas, doing lean manufacturing, Six Sigma projects. You have to look at that, and that's what you base your projections on. And I think if you take an overall consensus of that, and you plan for the future year, you should stay okay. But I think there also needs to be a promotion for the grants. We see a Facebook post every now and then we'll see on the website the cutoff date. But where's the real promotion of the program? Right. So I think we need to. The Improvement District as a whole needs to do a little bit more as far as advertising their own programs. Right.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more media coverage or something. Yeah, good idea. Okay. That's funny because my next question is, do you see any areas where EMCID could make a more positive impact? And you could almost even change that to improvement. So
Yeah. So So there's always room for improvement.
Sure.
In any organization, and anyone can improve. Transparency seems to be a hot topic with the improvement district. I don't necessarily think that that's the lack of transparency is malice. I think that there is some confidentiality to the board, but I do think that there could be more of an effort to give breaking news, so to speak, and not just through their Facebook page, because
Right.
a lot of the community doesn't have Facebook pages.
I agree. Yeah, they need to
Yeah.
expand their ideas on media too. So
Yeah, I love to look at their booklet that comes out.
The Insider.
Yeah, it's got some good information, but it's not. I don't think, and I know it's very expensive to do those mail outs, but they're, you could sign up to receive an email newsletter. There's many ways to get this information out. So transparency, it also takes away the assumption that they're doing wrong.
Right.
And I don't necessarily think that that's happening. And I'm not running to make grand changes. I'm just running with new ideas and to better what's already in place, right? So there are things that the improvement district can improve and change, such as aesthetics, enhancements in the community. There's some neighborhoods that are brand new, that are being developed, they're beautiful, they have great entrances, but then you have some neighborhoods that have been there 30, 40 years that never had the money, or they didn't have an HOA or a POA set in place to fund a beautiful entrance. Well, the improvement district can work with those neighborhoods to do things like that with them. So I think we could improve the beautification of the community.
Sure.
With the improvement district. There's funds that we could definitely allocate for that each year. So they've already got enhanced security programs in place. That's something I think needs to be maybe even enhance those a little bit. Security is a major issue.
Rise in population equals rise in crime, period.
Absolutely. I mean, 99, you can get to 45 depending on how fast you drive.
Right.
10 to 15 minutes. That's great for the average commuter that's going back and forth to work, but it also is a great commute for the criminals. And these highways, 5-lane highways, you get to Houston in 20, 30 minutes. The criminals are 20, 30 minutes from home, so they come up here. And I think the consensus now is Montgomery County will prosecute you pretty harshly, and that deters them, but visible security also is a strong deterrent.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think we need to continue to support that program and enhance it as needed. As the growth, we're going to need more police in the area. That seasonal shopper program that the constables do.
Yeah, the Safe Shopper program.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
Like it.
It's great, but it's focused on the high traffic areas. We need to also think about the ones that are out a little bit further from town. So there's lots of room for improvement, and it's just going to continue to be more room for improvement the more this community grows.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so you mentioned transparency. So regarding transparency, some of EMCID's business requires them to maintain a certain level of secrecy in order to thwart their competition. So what about the balance between confidentiality and transparency? And it's kind of a tightrope, and I think that's one of the areas where a lot of this suspicion is at.
Right.
Because they're, and I can understand it. I mean, I'm not going to tell my competitors what I'm bidding on.
Right.
And some of these projects go out a couple of years. So you've got to maintain that level of secrecy while you're spending a little money also for a couple of years.
Right.
So how do you answer that balance? I mean, it's a tough one.
It is tough. So from what I understand, the Improvement District works with the companies on incentive programs. And some of those incentive programs don't kick in until that business has fulfilled some of the obligations in the contracts.
Right.
So we definitely wouldn't want to expose anything that would give the business a loophole to back out of the contract, right?
Right.
So you have to be careful with that. In the same token, I think there's a way we can introduce that business to the community, and be very transparent on the incentive program. You know, there's some people that question how that's being monitored. Well, the Improvement District has a staff, and from what I understand, they are checking these businesses to make sure that they are fulfilling their obligations to the incentives in order to get the incentives. So
yeah, I would think so.
I don't think that's ever a question. But the confidentiality of it is, I don't think the contracts themselves should be out on public display, because you know, you wouldn't want your contract on public display, and neither would I with one of my customers, because you know, certain things that may expose. But you know, if the Improvement District did like a quarterly town hall meeting, and instead of a formal board meeting, just hosted a town hall meeting and talk about the accomplishments that they've been able to accomplish over the last...
and that could fill up a couple hours.
Right,
you know?
It could fill up a couple of hours. Yeah. But if you did those things, or even break it up a little bit, I think you remove the doubt, the concern, and the assumption that things are going wrong.
Right.
And you know as well as I do, you know, it's a human nature to gravitate towards the negative. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
our brains are wired for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there are things that have occurred in the past that, you know, kind of give a black eye to the Improvement District. But I think that the Improvement District's worked hard to try to overcome that, maybe not doing it as aggressively as they should. And so the unknown still creates doubt.
Right.
And your average constituent in this community isn't going to take the time to really dig into the weeds to validate that the Improvement District's doing what they should be doing and doing it the right way. So I think as the Improvement District, it should be our job as a board to make sure that we're being as transparent as we can within the legalities of the contracts, and not give up too much information. But as a board, I think there also needs to be a very clear line of what they can talk about and not talk about, and not withhold the things that they can talk about.
Right.
So I think the board, you know, they may be a little apprehensive because they're not quite sure if they should disclose some things or not.
Yeah, and I can understand that.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
I'm assuming too.
It's a tough
case.
Yeah.
I don't know what the reasoning for the information not coming out openly.
And, you know, maybe, and I've considered this possibility, maybe a lot of information does come out, but the methods that they use just aren't viewed by the average guy.
Yeah.
You know, maybe your business leader is going to check it out, and some other people would check it out, or other organizations, but your average voter isn't. And what the average voter is going to listen to is the crap that's on Facebook.
Yeah.
You know, hey, I heard him said, you know.
Well,
where are you going to go with that?
It's within the organization. It can be that way. You know, with the Republican women, I've seen that people in general do not think that elected officials are accessible. And they're absolutely accessible. You just have to go to where they
are. Local ones
are.
That's right.
You just have to go to where they are.
Yeah, and that's what I've tried to push that on this channel, you know, is, hey, you know, everybody takes so much effort and so much out of their daily life to support what's going on presidentially and all that, where we have no control.
Right.
Because you have no access to those people.
Absolutely.
But you do have access to your mayors. You do have access to your board members.
Absolutely.
You have access to the MUDs and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think the Improvement District, just from the outside looking in, this is what I've seen, is it doesn't look like there is a strong collaboration between the municipalities in this area and our county commissioner and the improvement district, and really working together. Because I think that is extremely important.
Yeah, big force.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, if the improvement district has a plan to open another industrial park, out in a rural part of East Montgomery County, our county commissioner needs to know about it.
Yeah.
He needs to be on board because he's responsible for the infrastructure.
Right. And infrastructure needs to be first,
Right.
I think.
And if that traffic's going to come through Splendor or the city of Patton Village, Roman Forest, or Woodbranch, those municipalities need to be involved as well. And there needs to be a collaboration of information. There needs to be open discussions and a good business type relationship between the two to accomplish those goals, because the industrial park is on a 2-lane road.
Really?
And Gene Campbell.
Yeah, Gene Campbell.
And
yeah.
so when you think about 2,000 employees going to and from work on that road, plus suppliers 24/7 and 18-wheelers,
Yeah.
why wasn't that a 4-lane highway planned from the beginning? You
Right.
know, so those things should be discussed and planned, and maybe there needs to be a planning committee among the improvement district to help with those things. I know they have the economic development leadership group, but we really need to improve that collaboration.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm the average guy. I don't own a business. I just work for a living, but I do vote, and I'm methodical about voting every election. Haven't quite made a decision on this particular race. So what would you say to that individual to get them to vote for you?
Well, I think it's very easy to bridge the gap between the community and the improvement district, because it can benefit everyone.
Right.
And when you explain to them how that improvement district is using the tax dollars to benefit, one, most importantly, is education, that in my opinion, and then how it is it's providing jobs to the community, and then how I think that it can benefit the small businesses even better than it does now. I know the needs to this community as a resident, and I want to make sure that I'm preserving your livelihood. And so I don't want to put another industrial park at your back door. And I don't want to put it in an area that's prone to flooding, where you live isn't prone to flooding, but it's going to cause you to be prone to flooding.
Right.
So I want to put all of your needs and your livelihood first. And I want to be the advocate for the average resident in East Montgomery County, as well as the small business owners on that board. And where you may not have a voice behind closed doors, I'll be that voice for you, because I have a vested interest in both of those things. So it's not for personal gain. I'm not trying to grow my business out of it. I want to see every small business out here successful, even the ones in the same industry as mine, because like I said, it feeds this community. So as a board member going into executive session, I'm going in there as an advocate for you, as an advocate for your neighbors, and it doesn't matter to me which side of the political fence you're on. I just want to preserve your way of living, your livelihood, and not cause more harm or hindrance to that.
Okay, fantastic. So how can voters learn more about Crystal Moore?
Well,
More about Moore.
I don't know if I'm the first to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and put my cell phone number out there.
Awesome.
I have nothing to hide. You can reach me anytime, 832-289-4171. I'm on Facebook, my personal page, Crystal Moore, or you can go to my campaign page, Crystal Moore, for EMCID board position number 5. You can reach me at any of those things or give me a call, text. Be glad to talk to you. Listen to your ideas, your wants, your needs. And I have been doing that over the last 6-7 months, talking to people about what their needs. Their needs are the same. You know, the consensus for the older, less of a, I guess, out there public display neighborhood. It's off in the back. No one really knows about it. You know, those areas like Southern Crossing, or you have
even Holiday Oaks and
yeah.
You know,
You've got Rio Vista. You've got River Plantation. You've got what's the one on Riverwalk? I mean, all those are just right there in town. But what about the neighborhoods off on the outskirts of the district? You know, I want to represent everyone, and I care about all those needs. So, and when you talk to those people, everyone has the same desires.
Sure.
You know, everyone likes the country feel out here. Well, I don't want to take that away from anyone. No one wants to live in Harris County anymore. They're moving out to Montgomery County. I can't blame you for that. We welcome you. But we also want to know, what is it that you want to see? What is it that you want to hear? Whenever I ask those questions, the consensus is the same. They still want that small town feel, but they need the jobs in the area
and
to
convenience
support
as well.
The convenience. They need the jobs in the area to support themselves. Gas prices, no one can afford to drive very far to go to work, you know. So we want to keep those things right here in our community, but I think it's also important to feed the businesses that are in our community from other businesses.
There you go. All right. Well, there you have it, guys. Crystal Moore, she's running for the EMCID board, position 5. And the election day is May 7th. And there's going to be early voting before that. I believe it starts on the 25th. Am I correct?
Yes.
April 25th. Great. And so the forum, which is going to be fun, is open to the public. And it is April the 19th at 6 o'clock at the EMC Senior Center at Bull Salas Park in New Caney. So show up. You don't have to bring your voter's registration card or none of that. Just come ready to ask some questions and listen to what's going on and have a great time. It's a casual thing. You don't have to wear a suit and tie, but we prefer that you wear shoes if you can. And look forward to seeing everybody there. Crystal, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity.
I think you've got some great ideas. And I hope your campaign goes well. And look forward to seeing you at the forum.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I will be there. Hope to see everyone there.
There you go. All right, guys, I'm Hank Vatt. This is Hank's Think Tank, and we're out.